design is not a single thing. It's an iterative process, continuously improve on that. What you're showing me is what we call UI. It's your visual interface, and this could be lipstick on a pig. You have to go back to the user experience. It doesn't matter what you're using on the back end. If they see that it's AI generated, they immediately devalue it. You tell me the what, and I'll tell you the how when it comes to designing an app. You have to be adaptable because change is the only thing that's constant. Whether AI is there or not, it helps you with certain things, but it comes down to that human connection, that authenticity, and that hard work.
That is Makoto Kern, founder and principal product design consultant at iiimpact in Austin, Texas, focused on enterprise software and UX design. Makoto adopts a holistic approach towards designing and launching the user experience, guiding companies in the energy, mining, healthcare, and cybersecurity sectors, among many others. He emphasizes user-centric, safe and secure interfaces to improve business workflow and operational safety. His passion for tinkering with hardware and software since his childhood days has now shaped his mission in navigating the disruptive AI landscape. My name is Peter Marcus Bach, and this is the Grand Challenges Podcast, a show about inspiring individuals who are stepping up to tackle the global challenges that our world is facing in their own unique ways. We reflect on the many out-of-the-box ways our guests have navigated the complexity and intricacies of the environment at the cutting edges of science, engineering, technology, and design. On today's show, Makoto and I delve into the world of UX, short for user experience design, understanding its fundamental differences with UI and its role in the rapidly evolving AI landscape. We discuss his journey in helping companies in the environmental, resources, and healthcare space design and automate better, address cybersecurity concerns, and look at how we can best adapt to the rise of AI across industries. Detailed information is provided in the show notes over at petermbach.com/podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and please enjoy the show. It's a pleasure to have you here, Makoto. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be on it.
And when you contacted me and you suggested some of the topics and I looked you up, it was super interesting. And I think it's a very important topic for the show. Also quite new, the world of UX, user experience. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to getting into that and how that can help us tackle the grand challenges.
For sure. I think there's a lot of misconception, a lot of unknowns about it. And now with tech heavy AI, I think it's an important topic to continue to push and champion.
Yeah, definitely. And we don't want to go too deep too quickly. Yep. So I thought, one of the very obvious things when I first caught up with you to plan the show, I noticed you have a very beautiful background. And I know you have a podcast yourself.
You mean this right here?
Exactly. The people can't see it, but you've got some plants, you've got some beautiful neon lights, and you have the message, Make an Impact. That is the title of your podcast.
That is correct. Yeah, it took me a little while to put this together. And just like anything else, when you get started, I was hesitant to jump into it. So I put a lot of effort into making it look cool before I actually did it. So I know everything about lighting and equipment, and finally just said, forget it. I got to start making content.
Yeah. Well, I guess you take too long to prep it. The perfectionism comes up, and I was the same. I took 6 months. I recorded the first 5 episodes and started sort of polishing it until I said, okay, I have to start releasing.
Yeah. I love your your videos and the content and what you create. It's really cool. Top notch.
Thank you so much. But compared to my background, I've got this random green screen. It's not actually there to be a green screen. It's just there to be a sound buffer, knowing that my living room can get quite echoey. But I've heard that nowadays, when you put yourself out there, the background is actually quite important. And I guess it's a tip for many wanting to, start a personal brand or put themselves out as, an expert in their field. Any particular reasons for the choice of plants and wood paneling and neon lights?
Man, I must have analyzed, I don't know how many different top podcasts. And I just wanted something that's, when you have to really, just like user experience, you have to know who your audience is or who you're trying to attract. And I'm trying to attract the executive and kind of higher level audience because that's the nature of my business consulting. So I wanted it always to look polished. And, being a designer, I have to make it look relaxing and cool. And that's just part of the stick, that I do. So having it just feel like this, it's just one thing. And of course, my wife is like, come on, you should do this and do that. So she gave me some feedback as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. I hope one day to have my own studio, at least dedicated space. And then I'll probably talk to you about tips for stylizing the background. I mean, we know from the show that I love nature. I love plants. So I'm going to definitely put some of those in the back.
For sure. You got to.
Yeah. So keyword, user experience and, the look and feel, but also most importantly, the intuitiveness of handling software, whether it's, the kinds of software we use on a daily basis, or more importantly, the software that we use in many important industries in our world. But you weren't always a UX designer or UX expert. You actually started in electrical engineering and you did a master's in robotics. Could you tell me the story of how you went from there all the way to UX now?
Oh, yeah. It's, I think there's such an interesting career arc for people who I've known that got into UX. I didn't go the traditional design school route. Yeah, I was always interested in, ever since I was a kid, taking apart stuff. I wanted to be an astronaut. My dad taught science in high school, so I was always reading the high school science books in grade school. So I knew everything about the stars and everything and planets. And so it just kind of naturally, I love science. I didn't like math so much, which is kind of funny. But I loved the science and decided to get into engineering and got my electrical engineering bachelor's, and then robotics, I loved it. And, I graduated and worked for about 10 years, published a thesis on this little 6-legged walk-in robot using fuzzy logic, which was really cool. Got into neural networks and self-driving cars. I had a course on that. And so I'm not Elon Musk, so obviously that didn't work out. But during the whole time, I've always loved reading stories about entrepreneurs. And, my being half Japanese, my relatives in Japan, they all were, not all, but most of them were pretty successful. And just seeing that kind of lifestyle, every time I go to Japan, maybe every 4 years or so, I'd see kind of like, wow, okay, be an entrepreneur, you could do pretty well for yourself. And so I always try to figure my own path. I mean, I loved engineering. I love figuring things out, but I got to a point where a lot of the robotics that I was doing was more towards manufacturing. And so when you get into manufacturing engineering back in the day, it was a lot more automation, and then lean manufacturing became more prevalent and more taught from you really wanted to change how manufacturing processes were done. And so my natural thing was I always liked working with people, and working on the manufacturing floor, you work with a lot of people that aren't very technical. And so, but the engineering software was built by engineers for engineers. And so it wasn't very good for the user experience, especially someone who has to ship 1,000 widgets. They miss something and now you have to rework those widgets.
Oh, yeah. And that would have been quite difficult 10 years ago. Now you can push an update.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. I mean, making those updates were different. And so it was interesting to see okay, I have to observe how a user works going through their day, how to everything from, they call it 5S, where you clean up the workflow, just how they walk from station to station, things like that. You try to optimize and you time it and you try to improve on that. And so, I just remember trying to continuously improve, which is called Kaizen. And we had to go through that through every single station, and everything was starting to get shipped to China too at that time. And so people weren't spending money or investments into robotic cells, which could cost, up to $500,000 to implement. And so whatever you had to kind of semi-automate. And so that is a human being and optimizing them within the software that they have to use. And so, it was just interesting. That kind of led me down the path of user experience. But to get into kind of my story as how I became entrepreneur side of things, I mean, I remember during my job, I would go on Craigslist and I started doing websites. And one of my biggest clients that I found was actually Turtle Wax, which is a big oil kind of retail supplier, but they had a sister company called Mystery Marvel Oil. And they wanted to build some kind of cool interactive thing. So we built them an interactive in-flash garage where you could drive in, you could look around, and you could pick their products. They actually loved it. And
I remember Flash from back in the day.
Oh, yeah. That stuck around. I mean, it was stuck around for several years until Apple decided to kill Flash.
Yeah.
And no, it was, that was my biggest project. I think it was a $25,000 project on Craigslist that I found. Everything else was, much, much less. And I was just helping out friends and family of friends and all that. And I remember I was in Chicago at the time living. That's where I was born and raised. And just driving downtown took an hour or 2 hours. So I would make calls every morning during lunch and then driving back home just to clients, and just did that every day until I got to a point where I got a pretty decent sized consulting gig while I was doing all my side projects, and just decided, I'm going to quit And it was at the time, it was so nerve wracking because we just had a baby.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife was getting into real estate, and it was funny. She was her first year as a realtor in Chicago, and I decided to figure out how to do SEO. And I reached out to like 10 different companies, got their proposals. I mean, you're talking like $100 a month to like $20,000 a month. I'm like, geez, why is there such a wide range? and so I started looking at it. I started seeing the similarities. I'm like, I think I could figure this out. And her website went from like 3 hits a day to I think 300 a day, or 3 hits a week to 300. Yeah, she became one of the top 1% of realtors her first year. It was crazy.
So quite a few threads. I mean, you've got on the one hand, the engineering side. And I certainly remember my experience with softwares written by engineers for engineers.
Yep.
It's a bit clunky, and we had to learn some of them back in my undergrad studies. I studied civil. And again, similar story about being good at math or not, but you kind of go for it. And I mean, there were bugs everywhere, and the thing would just crash on you, or you couldn't press enter. You had to scroll further in the boxes with the keypads or with the arrows. Yeah, it wasn't exactly the best experience. But I guess that's on the one hand, optimizing that and trying to make that better to help some of these processes. Then on the other hand, I guess pursuing, the side projects, the interest during, this would have been the .com boom. So everyone was trying to build websites.
Yep. Everybody want to try and integrate. And if you have a .com, you make me an eBay / MySpace / whatever, and then we'll make millions. And sounding a little familiar now with AI.
There's always the trend. First it was, the eBay and the MySpace, then the next Facebook, the next Twitter, and X as it's called now. And now it's just the next LLM chatbot. Yep.
It's interesting because as an engineer, and that's what I think I liked about industrial engineering or some of the other engineering disciplines, where you get to interact more with people. And just being a UX designer, you have to be empathetic. I feel like I am empathetic, so it just kind of naturally progressed where you have to put your head into the user space, and most people can't do that. They just like, this is what I feel. This is how I think. This is what I would do. And if you represent the general user, great, that may work. But you are also biased if you're sitting in a software for, a year or two or several years, you just become biased at what you do. So you have to put your head out of that space. And so I was able to really, I love interviewing people, working with people. The user research side of things was always really cool. So I think just that became a natural progression into like that, because it just electrical engineering and programming, it was driving me crazy just being in front of a computer all day and not interacting with people.
That's almost the same thing as well. But I guess that's a really good point to get into maybe some basics for our listeners as well, because people probably have heard of UI, so user interface. But in the recent decade, that's become a very big thing, UX, user experience. So maybe sort of give me your brief overview of what the difference is between the two and why they're, I guess, both important. Maybe one's more important than the other. What's your take on it? For sure.
So when you get into UX and UI, there's definitely a big difference. And people don't realize that when they're talking about it. They just think mostly in the UI, what's visually in front of you. And what I remember, one of our biggest clients, they brought me in. I was sitting in front of this round table of executives, and they show me their old interface, which is like this old Windows type of terminal type of look and feel, very ugly. And then they showed their redesign, and they're like, "What do you think, Makoto?" And I, it was 15 execs sitting there, and they put me on the spot. And I said, "Look, what you're showing me is what we call UI. It's your visual interface. And this could be lipstick on a pig for all I know. I have you're talking like some complex software. It was oil and gas. And I had no idea what was there in front of me. But I said, look, sure, it looks visually more appealing than what you had before, this V2. But for the user that uses this day in and day out, my workflow is the most important. What do I do? What's the most important thing I need to do to get my job done? And you got to make it frictionless. And so that's the UX, the deeper side of how do you make people finish what you're trying to do, their ultimate goal, what kind of pain point you're trying to solve, and get them to that as quickly as possible and easily as possible and enjoyable as possible. And so that is where people don't realize, I'm sitting in there and telling them this and say, look, the visual design could be the exact same what you had in V1, but the V2 could be your workflow has decreased. And it's not just the amount of clicks, again, which is another misconception, like, oh, you reduced the amount of clicks, so it's a better UX. It's like, no, you may have more clicks, Think about like a wizard.
Yeah.
Do you put a form that has 50 form fields on one page versus a wizard that you step by step walk them through? Yeah, there's more clicks on the step by step, more pages. But does that make it a better experience than this massive form that somebody's like, oh my God, I got to fill all this out? That's what the user experience is. And so that's what you have to teach a lot of people, the difference at all levels. And, just getting back to like the .com boom and bust era, that's where Apple really pushed the user-centered thinking versus the feature-centered. And so that's hopefully, we're kind of back at the technical side of feature focus. But yeah, Apple was such a big proponent of that. Steve Jobs always was like hyper focused on the user experience. And so that really accelerated this industry.
Actually, yeah, you mentioned Apple as really the key example that led to UX being really taken up. And I guess to put it into an engineering context, what you just described, I mean, you can have a very complex model that may, I guess in the case of oil and gas, it might simulate drilling or the yields or processes. But if there's way too many buttons, the user wouldn't know where to start, even if they had the knowledge. It's about walking them through the key steps and making it click intuitively in their minds. Yes, this is now the process of mixing with, mixing our extraction with something. Or I guess in my field, it would also be like when you're layering maps on top of each other to try and understand their interactions, just knowing where to put what and then seeing the result in the correct color scheme. So not just, the animations, not just the, the visual, but the correct color scheme that communicates the psychology. All of that, I guess, belongs to really the UX experience, right?
Yeah, that's a really important point where it's not just when you're using it. What I see happening a lot of times when I go into like these very heavily technical clients is that they have their development teams do the design. When design is under the CTO, it usually is an immature company and it's problematic because as a developer, you're proud of all the features that you created. You want to show off like, hey, look at all the stuff that we can do. But as a user, you're overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that's in front of your face. And that's actually detrimental. And so you have to have the balance between, product being on a separate side and the development being on a separate side, because you both have to come to like, there's constraints, there's tech debt, there's whatever the case is. We as user designers have to kind of work with development teams together to create the best user experience. And yeah, with any type of complex systems like oil and gas, you also have different users. You have the people that are on the floor or in the field. Their connections may not be so good. They're working in harsh environments and they have gloves on, whatever the case is, or it could be life or death. If they're fracking or whatever the case is, if there's pressures building up, they have to be able to see these things immediately and know how to remedy any kind of problems. And you've got people that, maybe they're new people every so often. And so the learning curve has to be really easy. It has to be intuitive. And the people that are buying the software are sometimes or many times people, execs in the company. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll just use this software. But they don't realize like somebody who's out in the field is not happy with the user experience. It's hard for them to use. And so I remember when I was going through some of the software redesign for one of our clients who does software for oil and gas, and it was like maybe a downstream or upstream type of process, and it was complex. And, they have SMEs in there that have been working in the industry for years or decades, and they're product owners. And so they're making a lot of assumptions, and we're asking them questions, and we're saying, okay, is this what they should have or should not have? But then you actually put that in front of a user, and there's a lot of assumptions that were incorrect or kind of off or wrong. And so even people who have been in the industry, you have to get it in front of users to test. So yeah, there's so many different facets of it that people don't realize. And especially now with competition, you need to be like really hyper focused on that user.
Yeah, I guess if it comes down to a choice between two equivalent kinds of softwares that do the same thing, it's not necessarily going to be the features that wins out. It's going to be which one can the user really just start using out of the box without having to read a large manual or watch a few hours of YouTube videos.
For sure. One of our largest clients was a robotics company, one of the top 5 in the world. They were losing market share so fast to another robotics company that was up and coming. And this is the thing. From the moment that thing is shipped to when the user receives it, just unpacking it, just how Apple's unpacking their box and everything, it's enjoyable. It's easy. It's not like packaged into all this bubble wrap or whatever and hard to take out, to disassemble and reassemble. But they saw, the director I was working with, he saw like, oh my God, you just take it out of the box. It's so easy. Ours is all packed up really hard. It takes forever to take out. And then there's all these manuals for this client of mine. I mean, to learn, it takes about a month for the learning curve. These robots, their competitor, did about a quarter of the features, quarter of the accuracy, but you can set up a manufacturing line within a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so they were, I think now that company is pretty much right on the tails of all the top companies because of that very reason, because of the user experience, not because of the features, but because it was so easy to set up. And, you know, when you're setting up a manufacturing facility, speed is what you need.
Yeah.
Set up.
I guess with any kind of, task that you want to accomplish nowadays. And you touch upon many different fields as part of your company that you co-founded now, iiimpact. Mm-hmm. And yeah, in a way, tackling many different kinds of cases, but it all comes down to the same thing, the intuitive design, the ease, maybe sometimes the less is more philosophy in terms of not overwhelming the users. And I guess that's something where we need to now trace the last bits of your steps.
Yeah.
You did a lot of these website building. You started to understand a lot more about user experience. You have that engineering precision from your training. And also, I guess, the experience in tackling some big global issues, oil and gas, but also now with energy and other aspects like mining that you do. But what was that step that led you to then found iiimpact?
Yeah. So like I said, I founded in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of companies that we were helping and working with as far as like from a consulting side of things, where it's a lot of insurance companies, auto, home, things where there's very competitive space. And so trying to get people to go on the website, convert, you had to really think about the user experience. And so I was just naturally picking up a lot of those type of bigger clients. And then we made the move to Austin, Texas. And that's kind of where the company took off, is where one of our longest running clients, and they still are a client over 10 years, we help them out with the oil and gas software. They do renewables. And that's where I remember I was competing against a very well-known UX agency. Uh-huh. And I was like, oh my God, I follow these people and I read their blogs and everything. And the VP told me, I'm like,
that would make you nervous.
I was so nervous. And during the whole bidding process, they got acquired by Capital One. Ah. So yeah, I was like, whew, okay. And so he sat me down. He's like, Makoto, we need you here. It was in Houston at the time. So it's, a 2-3 hour drive. And I said, hey, I'll be here every day if you need me to, whatever. I don't care. I'll make this happen. But I said, one of the things with these big agencies, they recommend this blue sky solution. And it's not practical because of the constraints of, hey, we need to launch this within the next year or two. We can't do this. It'll take us 5 years, multi-millions. We need something that actually works now or within, our dev team's capabilities. And so I said, look, I'll take ownership of whatever we recommend, and I'll make sure that we champion the right processes and teach you how to fish. And so we did that. And just through that alone and that partnership, people leave the company, they go to other companies and just naturally just say, hey, Makoto and his team did such a great job. Let's bring them in over here. And it just kind of kept on, the snowball effect that we just kept on growing and growing. And we got up to like about 50 people in our team.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And so, yeah, it's, we've helped so many different industries over the last, decade. Primarily, I would say like 75% enterprise, 25% consumer. And yeah, it's been great because we're focusing so much on the UX side of things, but we became more holistic. And I think some of the lessons when the .com boom and bust happened, that's when we were growing our company pretty fast and too fast, where I was not controlling the quality.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Often a danger, I guess, when you're starting your own business. I started to lose clients right at that boom bust at the beginning of the 2000s. When I was growing it. And I was like, okay, like when the bust happened, I started to like rethink things. I'm like, okay, I'm going to grow a strong team, and that's going to be my focus. I'm going to pick and choose the clients that I want to work with as well, because that's one client can just suck most of your time if you're not careful. And of course, being confident in doing what I'm doing, it helps me
decide like, I'm not going to be a yes person and be an order taker for the clients, but I'm going to tell them what is the right process, even if you don't like it. And then you take that recommendation. And I said, even if it's design is not a single thing, it's an iterative process to continuously improve on that. And
so true.
Sticking by and saying, okay, this didn't work. Let's pivot and do something else. And let's figure this out before you spend so much time and money into developing something that no one wants to use. And so that's, it kind of grew into where it is today, where now we follow the entire process from product strategy, which is such a big piece because you basically want to understand why you're building it, who you're building it for, what pain points you're trying to solve, and then making sure leadership is all aligned with that. And that's the biggest problem. Most leadership and communication is poor within corporations.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of siloing between organizations. Yeah. We see there's a lot in the environmental sector, but also within organizations where often you have this decision chain up to a certain amount of investment. We just trust you to do those decisions and only then do we talk. So it's a bit fiddly.
Yeah, it's, as a UX designer, you're going to get different priorities from different product managers now. And product managers are the glue now that holds. I mean, that's such a new kind of like position that has grown. Okay. It used to be like, I thought the UX designer was the glue, but naturally people evolved into more product owners. And product owners have to be good at business, tech, and UX in order to be successful. And so when you get these people who are kind of that middle management, they're directing a UX designer, but then as it moves up the chain, the hippo, the highest paid person in the room, starts to throw a monkey wrench into your ideas. Like, no, I want to do it this way. That's scope creep, that's churn, and you actually prolong the whole process.
Yeah, I guess it's the case for all kinds of design. I mean, what I'm hearing is just echoing what I hear in architectural offices as well. When the client says, I want this small change, and it actually changes the entire building or the entire site. So but as you said, design is iterative, and it has to be an active dialogue.
Yeah.
And you've told us stories about the times you've been in the boardrooms with clients, and that has led to a methodology that you also call rapid boardroom to code. And that embodies the philosophy that you also take.
Yeah, this is where I call it like therapy for the CEOs or for the executive suite is therapy, and half the work is design. The other half is trying to get the egos in the room to agree. And that's where the money's made. That's where like I earn my money for that, because it is hard to champion from the top down, and you've got to get the right attitude. If you've got a CEO that's ready to push and champion user-centered thinking versus feature-centered, it's great. But I mean, within we have like this, we call it product immersion. It's like a 2-day sprint.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. And we really get the leaders in the room from all different areas, sales, marketing, tech side, the CEO and customer service. And we basically say, okay, what are your business goals and objectives? What is the user's journey? What are their pain points? How does that tie into the business objectives? And then we create this feature roadmap where we understand what are the things that we should go after, but they're high effort, but high risk versus low effort, low risk. And then kind of put that in a quadrant and then determine, okay, these are the next 6 to 12 months. We know these are things your dev team, let's fill the backlog. Let's start making those things. But then these are things that are very high risk, but a high reward. But let's prototype this. Let's test it out. Let's do actual user research before we throw a ton of money and time into it, because there's a great reward, or it could be very risky if we just start developing it. And so this process alone, it's like, oh my God, we got to get people in a room. We got to do all this stuff. But this process alone will then start to lead your teams to be aligned. So when the UX designer is like, you got 5 people in a room telling you, because everybody's a designer whenever we show our stuff, it's like, okay, how do we make this subjective into the objective? Well, you do that by tying into the business goals. Well, we're designing it this way because it ties into this business goal. And then after that, it's not done once you hand off design, which is such another misconception, is that, okay, thanks for the designs, Makoto, we're done. We've got from here. No, you need to track the metrics. People are like, oh, B2C, you just track consumer conversion rates. That's what we need. But enterprise, they have to use it. And that's so they think they don't have to track metrics, but you actually do, like time on task, NPS scores. There's so many different metrics to like actually see what's actually happening with your users. And so we track that and we say, okay, well, this is how it's performing. It's better than last month, or it's the same, or whatever the case is. So these are things that encompasses our whole process, which saves so much more time, months of churn. And our designers and product people and execs know exactly what questions to ask when we're creating new things. And so it's funny, we've done this hundreds of times and we launch it and we really refined our process to really work. And I've got some great people on my team that can facilitate. I mean, it's literally like herding cats in some meetings where everybody has so many different ideas. They start arguing and whatever. And you could see that we almost have personas for when you see people in the room, and you can see how they react to these kind of things. You get them uncomfortable. You see people are open. You see people are like, nah, I don't want to do this. And you see people who are kind of like on the fence, and just dealing with that is a facilitation. You have to be good at it. And I have, some good people on my team. Sometimes I get frustrated. I'm like, oh my God, I'm glad you're here. Cause yeah, I'm like, I just want to design.
That's true. But they often say that 90% of the solution is defining the problem in the first place. And that also includes the pain points, the conflict points, so that you avoid all these things later on.
Yeah,
so you really got that method down
true.
pat.
Yep.
No, very, very true. And so based on that entire experience, I mean, impact works across, from what I saw, 12 different areas you've touched upon already. And some of them include in particular things that we've also covered in the past on the show, things like mining, energy. There's also healthcare. And of course, cybersecurity is becoming a very big topic as well with the rise of AI, with a lot of these kinds of aspects. But what are some examples in these environmental sectors and the healthcare that you've worked on where UX has played a very important role?
For sure. With healthcare, we were working with a startup, and this was probably like about 10 years ago. We're actually helping them with AI and helping them with a chatbot to help the whole intake, and then helping with doctors, when they start prescribing medicine, if there's issues where they're prescribing something and they don't know they're taking other medicines, it could counteract or have a negative reaction. And so having these AI systems actually involved where it's like, hey, you're prescribing this is actually a problem with 2 other prescriptions they have, because sometimes people don't want to say what they're taking or they omit from doing that. And so just seeing that from that aspect 10 years ago was very interesting to know. Like, we know that in our healthcare here in the United States, it's become a little bit problematic, as far as it's a money-making thing. How fast can doctors see? How fast can you get patients in here? So they're very limited because they're not incentivized to like spend time with the patients. And so it becomes scary to that respect, because you're like, okay, what's the user experience? What's the most important thing? Is it the doctors making more money or the hospitals, or is it actually making sure you don't screw something up with the patient? And so there's always that balance and that push-pull between from the healthcare side. And privacy obviously is such a big thing, and making sure the systems here in the United States that where you have to get access is so antiquated. And so it's such a very hard lift in the healthcare industry. But it's so much needed as far as like just the user experience side, because you are dealing with, so many different personas that have to interface during the course of a patient's visit. So it is so key to have that user experience side of things.
Yeah, I guess to streamline it, to be able to then not misdiagnose or misprescribe the wrong medicines. It is a matter of life and death as well in the worst case. And you definitely want to avoid that.
If you have any type of lawsuit, if you're not careful, that's why the insurance premiums for doctors are so high, and same with hospitals. And it's something that, you have to put your empathy hat on, because if the doctor is looking at all these charts and doing all these things and have 5 more patients to see, or just had surgery, you have to really think about, okay, what is noticeable for them so they don't miss something during the course of using an application.
You talk about oil and gas, other examples within the energy mining space?
Yeah. So with one of our clients, they are a Fortune 5. We were helping them with different applications, and they did everything as well, like a lot of HMI type of interface. They also had I would say it was interesting because they, like you said, the siloing of this big organization, I mean, they did not talk to each other. And so they have a huge UX team, huge design team that was working, but they acquired a company that was doing a lot of monitoring in the field. And they just said, hey, we need a company that can help us move fast because they're so slow at doing things. There's so much red tape. And so we were helping out this one company that was doing a lot of monitoring out there and had a lot of monitoring equipment. And so working with them was really interesting because of the fact that developing these interfaces, showing like micro animations of how things are flowing, drilling, they have 3D models, and just working with them about how to do that was pretty fascinating because they were pretty open because of the fact that they were kind of like the startup that was acquired. And so they're used to moving fast, but then just teaching them proper ways in which to do the UX because they were having their development teams design as well. And you can just see those problems. And especially when, like, again, you had people out in the field that were not catching situations. They weren't seeing things. I mean, you had one application we were building was they had, I don't know, probably like 30 cameras monitoring different oil sites.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so they had to detect if there was an issue on these cameras through their vision system. So they were developing algorithms to check like any kind of errors, people walking by it, or you see some type of issue. So flagging these cameras and having people who monitoring it during the course of 24 hours, because somebody's not sitting there all the time. But if there's like something, you come in the next morning and you check, hey, was there any kind of issues? Being able to flag, show where that issue was within the vision system that caught it. And is it a false positive or whatever? I mean, it's amazing to see like that is so important from a UX perspective and how dangerous things can be. And just going through and just making sure like, hey, is this efficient enough for what you need for the job that's being done? So yeah, I mean, it's just those facets alone it made things so much more interesting.
I mean, 30 cameras, that's already a lot of data coming in and a lot of data to look for. But I was reading recently about all the IoT devices and just the smart home market growing massively in the coming years. And that's going to be tons more data, and trying to manage that and make sense of that, I guess, is a huge UX challenge as well.
I know. I think before we jumped on this call, my microphone tried to attach to my microwave.
Really?
They're the Bluetooth.
Oh, really? That's even possible?
No. But you know what I mean? Everything is trying to be connected to the net. It's like, I don't need to connect my dishwasher. I mean, maybe for certain things to turn it on, but yeah, it's getting a little bit too much maybe for the consumer side.
No, that is very true. And then sometimes you just start getting lost in, what you're actually connecting. And then maybe certain devices can't handle too many connections as well.
Yeah. Just wash my dishes. Just cook my food. That's all I need.
I mean, I don't have the smartest of homes, but at least I'm happy I can turn on my lights with my smartphone. So,
that's good.
Yeah, that's good. And I guess cybersecurity being an equally important aspect, it's not, I guess, directly the UX, but it has to coordinate with the UX, right? From what I understand.
Yeah, it's cybersecurity. We have 2 clients that we've been working with over the past 2-3 years, and everything from monitoring, prevention, catching. It's such a fascinating field, especially because it is very technical as well. And AI is really prevalent in their industry, whether you're using it to hack or using it to detect. It's something that, again, it's very development driven. And so us coming in there, you see the dev designed something or created the application, they hand it off to marketing because marketing creates great marketing material.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this is going to be a match made in heaven. We'll create a best looking app. And, we had that exactly happen. And the head of product, who we knew from another prior project, he's like, sure, the graph looks pretty, but this is absolutely useless to our users. So can you help us, Makoto?
I think I saw a meme once about different programming languages. And I remember, I think it was was it LaTeX? You had a student and it was a different programming language, and they would give the professor something. And at one point it was, I think it could have been LaTeX, because people like to write their reports in LaTeX in academia. And I think the professor was like, this is a flower pot. And one was like, this is a report. This is this. I have to find this meme. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny that, again, it just comes to the difference between UI and UX.
Yeah.
And that's something where with cybersecurity, I mean, it's, they're trying to detect something and they're getting attacked. Sites are getting hacked all the time. And so you don't want to be distracted with something that, again, is a false positive, or they're trying to track down something, or they're at a company, they're trying to monitor 500 laptops and they're seeing, all these different ways to get in. And it's, with a lot of nowadays, with a lot of things that are getting vibe coded, the security is kind of put on the side. I mean, the cybersecurity clients, they're just like licking their lips. They can't wait to see all the different applications that are probably going to get launched that were vibe coded and now are going to get hacked. And once you get hacked and you give away the privacy data, whatever, you're going to be sued to death if you don't watch it. So it's something that peril. There's so much money was being poured in or is being poured into cybersecurity, and just knowing who's going to come out ahead. It's amazing to see and be involved in this, because it's very technical. And, we weren't SMEs at the time, but you don't have to be. You tell me the what, and I'll tell you the how when it comes to designing an app. So it's a match made in heaven where we don't have the biases, and we can tell you they have AI, they have chat interfaces, but we're trying to even optimize those to say, a person that's just starting off may not know the right prompts, right questions. So how do you make that easy for them to actually get through an application and find the problems without knowing the right prompts? So
I guess the peril of the vibe coding as well, if you don't understand what it's producing, even worse. I've tried it myself. I'm not someone who would just take the code and pass it off unless it's some temporary thing I need to do and it gives me the solution. But it's usually not an entire software. And I still feel the human element is so crucial because, as you said, on the security side, that is, that's a whole subject in itself. But for someone who tries to do engineering analyses or, hydrological analysis, I also want to make sure that it makes sense what it's trying to produce and that the assumptions it makes is also correct. Not to mention, after a few iterations, I think it just goes haywire and you get a mess that doesn't even run.
It's, especially now with AI agents, before going too deep in AI, I think, with AI agent, if you have a 95% success rate, but that 5%, now you put it into another AI agent that has another 5% loss, and then you start to exacerbate, as you get more and more agents tied together, it becomes problematic. But there's a term that I've coined that I call it the AI Competence Mirage. And so just like you're saying, if you're an industrial or civil engineer or a designer and you're just vibe coding, and you all of a sudden it creates all this code, the backend database or whatever, the front end code, and your knowledge of that gap is pretty vast. You think what you just created is magical. And you're like, I don't need a developer. I don't need a front end developer or a back end developer, or I don't even need a designer. I just use AI for it. It's because it's this mirage because of the gap that you have. But if you ask a developer about the code, they're like, it's okay. It helps with some things, but not really. And same thing, vice versa. If I'm a developer and I'm looking for designs like you're saying, and I look at the designs that AI generates, I'm like, this is just a good start, but there's no way you want to launch this. This is not a final product. So I think it's something that people have to realize that, it'll help you and force multiply a lot of things, but it's not going to get you the final product. And with cybersecurity, especially, you need to make sure that that thing is secure, because, man, just the hacking, I'm in Vegas now, and our DMV was shut down for 3 or 4 days because of cybersecurity hacks.
Crazy.
And these are antiquated systems that I think it's just going to be more and more prevalent. I think even one of the casinos, or 2 casinos, were shut down a couple of years ago, and they lost $100 million in a week because they were completely shut down because they didn't update their systems.
I was reading about data centers recently, and they're going to become even more important in the future with all the different tech that we've got, especially the connectivity that we need, whether it's IoT or whether it's AI or anything. And there's a stat that a lot of companies, I don't know the exact percentage, but a lot of them can go bust in 72 hours of downtime. So it only takes one real cybersecurity attack to completely, disable any kind of company that's reliant on these systems. Yeah,
that's a scary situation. If I couldn't sleep if I was the CEO of that company, and I'm sure they're going to have redundant systems and things like that, but that's just, where does it become cost prohibited?
Yeah. We'll get the stat and put it in the show notes so the listeners can look it up as well. So we have the exact number, but it was a pretty eye-opening number, and it makes you realize we have all these fancy tech, but cybersecurity will definitely be just as important in the future, because there will always be some players that want to disrupt everything in the bad way, not in the good way.
Oh yeah. And they'll use AI to, force multiply their efforts.
Even more so.
Yeah.
We definitely have to get into AI a lot more. But before that, I do want to seek your advice on things. I mean, Impact's doing incredibly well. And as an entrepreneur, and you've had that entrepreneurial spirit for quite some time, but I guess what advice can you give, for someone? I've started my own company recently.
Mm-hmm.
You've grown through, I guess, fairly organic growth, doing a good job with the few clients that you have, which led to referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be your key advice? What other kinds of advice can you give in that regard?
So, when I switched to after we had that kind of like initial run where the quality started to suffer, I think one of the key things is, especially with being service-based, it's your team. I always put my team number one, and I've defended my team in situations where, it got uncomfortable for the client. But when somebody mistreats somebody on my team, I stand up for them. I think when you put your team number one and the client number two, it's just naturally they're going to take care of the client. But if you just let the client if they're not being respectful and they walk all over you, the people on your team are going to leave. And so I think when you hire, I always say hire slow, fire fast. With corporations, they have to watch out for lawsuits, things like that. But for me, look, when I have somebody on my team, I'm 100% loyal to them. I brought them in. I trust them 100%. And so I'll back them up 100%. And I think when you have the right attitude, when you hire, especially in a service-based industry, half of our job is to deal with the personalities and the client. And if you have somebody who's, I will take a B player with an A attitude versus an A player with a B attitude or a C attitude, because trust me, I've had those type of people, and those type of people, one bad person on your team can almost pretty much kill your company if you're not careful, because the way they spread, they're very confident or cocky to a point where it becomes detrimental. Like, oh, I'm not getting paid enough. I'm not doing this. I don't care about the client. I'm going to do some other thing. I'm going to work, 4 jobs or whatever. And I don't care about the money or the clients that Makoto has. And
yeah, that's tough.
You have to watch out for that. And I think when you hire, again, like hire for attitude. Don't hire for skill set. I don't care what college you went to or what university. I don't care. Experience helps to a certain point. But when I see like an attitude that's bad, even though your skill set's top notch, I don't want you on my team. So it's funny. I think it's almost like a military and like they say Navy SEALs or whatever here is such a big thing, where you're going to have like these Olympic level athletes that can just run the course and kill everybody physically. But when times get tough, they know it's going to be a shit show at some point. Something's going to happen during the course of the project or whatever, where they're going to have to like kind of dig deep, and it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows. So how do they handle the pressure of when that happens? And that's what you want to see. And it happens throughout every project. So, hey, we've got this conference coming up. We have to switch priority. No, we don't like this or we don't like that. And the CEO wants to change this. And so you have to be able to take those kind of situations. And like I said, if you're treated fairly, and then we get it, there's so many things that happen on the client side that we don't know. And so we have to be able to understand their side of things and talk them through and be realistic. So, I think that's the most important thing when you're doing a service-based industry is the people on your team.
And often it's the team that makes something big, not the individual, because you have all the skills that intermingle, and the willingness to learn, I think, far outweighs the skills that you may already have, because it shows a willingness to adapt to changing environments as well. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I've had people on my team where they didn't want to change tool sets. We have, it's funny. Figma is like the big unicorn now that came out of, past Adobe and Sketch and all these UX tools that we use. And I just remember some people on my team were reluctant to change because they're like, oh my God, I got to learn a different tool. And I said, look, I've been using it for the past 6 months, and I think it's the new tool that's going to revolutionize what we do. And it has, and it's shown. It's that everybody uses it now. And so just being able to kind of like understand what's the forward path of the future, I've been able to kind of mitigate in sense of I love to learn new things and I try to be adaptable. That's another thing. You have to be adaptable because change is the only thing that's constant. I've been through, I don't know how many recessions, boom and busts. And so it's just, you have to be adaptable and just willing to learn more. I mean, just the whole social media aspect is podcasting. I mean, this is something where I don't want to be in front of a camera, or I used to not want to be in front of a camera. I didn't want to talk about things. I always thought that was being just, too cocky. And I'm like, just give me the work. I want to do good work, and that's going to sell itself. But in this day and age, and 0 clicks, no more SEO, no more being on that.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself out there. And like, I love being on these podcasts, meeting people like you and meeting new people and just talking about the story, I think is really important. And I'm trying to get people on my team who are afraid of the camera to talk about all the great job and work that they do. And it's, that's the next step.
It's something that I'm trying to warm up to, also being on the camera. I've gotten used to the audio now after how many episodes of the podcast, but yeah, the camera will come. I'm pretty sure. I've had a few moments, which has been good. So,
oh yeah, you should.
But, it's good encouragement. I do appreciate it, and I think it also resonates with a lot of things that I've been thinking about and reading. So, thank you for the advice. And I think when I hire my first person, I definitely resonate with that, and would make sure that the team comes first, and so that they can produce, they can grow, especially, and that we can flourish together.
For sure.
Let's open the can of worms again, because we opened it just now. But, the elephant in the room, AI. You have been exploring AI quite a lot, just like I have. And I figured we have a nice battleground now to share our experiences. I guess, going through a few topics that I picked out that we could discuss. The obvious one being, is it overhyped? People are saying GPT-5 is PhD level now. You have Claude, you have so many other LLMs. Gemini's recent image generator, Nano Banana, is actually really fast. I was quite impressed. But, everyone's saying our jobs will be replaced. AI is coming. We need to start voting for universal basic income, those kinds of things. I mean, is it all hype, or is there some truth to that? Where's that middle ground in your opinion?
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk to different people, they have different perspectives because they just don't know. And we have a AI team that we're integrating AI into one of our energy clients as kind of more of that customer service side of things, and just understanding like large sets of data, complex data, and then trying to get to the answers quicker. And that's, it's super helpful with that type of work. I have a friend that's in private equity. I mean, he's funny. He's a doom and gloom kind of guy. Sometimes he's like, our jobs are gone. If people at white collar jobs, they don't even know it yet, but they're all out of jobs in a year or two, or they're already out of jobs. And our people are coming out of college, they're out of jobs as well. And so it definitely, and the industry that you're in and what you're trying to do, if you don't use it, it's fascinating to me how many people are still not even using it or have no idea about it. If you don't know anything about it and you see it, I mean, you like get to use it and use it in your daily life and work and how you do things. It's going to help you 100%. I use it all the time. I probably have 5 different tabs of all the different AIs, and I compare them against what they do, what they say. I mean, look, I'm not a writer by any means. I know what I want to say and I talk to it. And so for me to produce like social media content, I can't spend all day. I mean, just to do tweets and things, it takes me hours if I do it myself. But I know what I want to say and how I want to say it. And so it helps me like speed up that process. And then if I do UX research or whatever where I want to like, hey, give me some things about this or that, it'll help me as I understand and know the right questions to ask. I think that is super helpful. But, the low level repetitive jobs, yeah, those are probably gone for sure. And with the video, the Nano Banana, it's very cool. But it's funny. I ask my kids when they see AI, if they see that it's AI generated, they immediately devalue it. Same with copy and content. Anybody sees any pattern, they pattern recognize icons, hyphens, whatever. Immediately it's devalued. So it's cool to see how fast it generates things and certain things. But I mean, it still takes I think now the amount of money and time it is getting more expensive.
Yeah. I mean, recognizing AI generated content, but also, maybe 6 months ago, we were still used to it, but I'm starting to get sick of seeing the same LinkedIn posts of AI tips and the same hooks written over and over again. And then just finding out that it's just repeated by other LinkedIn channels as well. And it's just overwhelming. And at some point, I just start ignoring or unfollowing a lot of these.
Yeah. Hopefully you're not unfollowing me, but
no, definitely not.
No, I try to, again, like I know that I'll read something and again, I try to take a controversial stand, especially on AI, because I do feel, I'm reading and listening and constantly like upskilling myself with AI, but I see where with Claude and some of the release with some of the research what MIT did recently about some of the AI agents or, AI agents not performing as well as they should. I think there's a pretty high failure rate. But these things like that is where I always say you have to go back to the user experience. It doesn't matter what you're using on the back end. It's like the browser war, who won out, AOL, Netscape, or Google Chrome. Mm-hmm. It's because Google Chrome gets you what you want and what you need. And so that's the same with UX is that I don't care what kind of back end, but whatever the front end produces, that's what's important for AI because everything's a wrapper nowadays. And so I think, it's gotten so noisy on LinkedIn and you really have to, I mean, if your purpose is to show your expertise or knowledge on something, then you have to do something else that makes you stand out from the crowd. Because right now the noise has just exponentially increased.
No, definitely. And ultimately it comes back to the user-centricness of it. Everyone touts all the beautiful features, but at the end, if you can't access it or if you don't know how to access it, it's the same as not having it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one other topic based on AI, I have kids. They're, one's finishing up high school and is the AIs in schools. And what do you study? That's a big thing. And so, I'm sure so many kids that are in college or their parents are putting them through college or it's like, oh, are you going to have a job after you graduate? What are you going to get into? And it is a scary thing nowadays. It's like, do you go into computer science? Because is there going to be any coding jobs in 3 years? Again, I think you have to be able to use it. So I encourage my kids to use it. And I know there's been reports where you're not doing as much deep thinking, but I'm on the fence about that. Like, do you need to know the history of 1820? American history, if I'd tell my kids, learn some things about it. But in the end, if it's taken away from what you really like doing, like if you love that science class or that business class, focus on that more because that's what's going to help you. But I also encourage my kids to do more critical thinking of,
you said the keyword.
That's what I think teachers need to do more of instead of like just teaching the way they've been teaching since the 1950s. Like I have my kids and my son, especially now that he's older, he's in a band and he actually performs. But I said, look, the most important things for you to know is learn the industry, network with people. And if you like design, learn how to design and incorporate all that together. And he's like, he's been getting a lot of big shows because he knows the people in the industry. And that always comes down to like that talking and being able to really be friendly, you sell yourself, but then take on the other aspects of what you really like, but understand the business side of things, understand the design side of things. And so I'm trying to teach my two daughters the same thing that school is not able to kind of keep up. But I also encourage them to use the AI and see how it helps them. So, I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, it'd be a different story, but it is a scary time for some people, but for other people, it's exciting.
I think it'd be boring if we had a crystal ball because we can't try and figure it out ourselves. I mean, that was one of the thoughts I had. Like all of a sudden you have the world's knowledge at your fingertips and it's almost like the cheat codes to the game of life as well, it takes the fun out of it. I remember playing SimCity back when I was a child and, I'd rather play it from the ground up rather than putting it in a cheat code that gives me infinite money and I can do whatever I want. So I guess it's, I'm trying to wrap my head around how do you then still have fun in what you do. And I think one of the keys is, it gives us the ability to really go interdisciplinary now. We can really synthesize knowledge across things because we can use AI to learn exactly what we need in a much faster way. And I think using it as your assistant is going to be very crucial and not trying to rely on it fully.
Yeah, what feels more beneficial, $1 given to you or $1 earned by you? Mm-hmm. And that's, Yeah, and I see that just every time when I tell my kids, like, you have to go through the struggle, because when you go through the struggle to earn what you just did, I mean, there's so much more benefit from it. And that's knowledge too. Going through a project and you're trying to figure things out. I mean, yeah, I'm using AI for, like, if you're using it for sales or to gather more information, you don't want to sit there and spend so much time trying to gather email addresses or do scanning 500 different companies, but you're going to do the hard work where I have to get in front of a phone or video and talk to the person, sell them on what we do. And that doing it 100 times, I've gotten better than from the first time I did it.
That's true.
So you still have to grind no matter what, whether AI is there or not. It helps you with certain things, but it comes down to that human connection, that authenticity, and that hard work.
And something that you've craved when you went through your electrical engineering and through your whole career, and in a way, really what gives you a lot of that joy in what you do.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was overwhelmed with AI, I would say a year ago. I was at a point where I was stressing out. I said, oh my God, I'm being replaced. I'm done.
That was me earlier this year. Yes. I think we all go through it.
Yeah. And so now I'm more of a proponent of, like, hey, forget it. Just use it. It's like you're either on a surfboard in a wave. Either you're going to be behind it, the wave, or in front of the wave. So be in front of that wave and just use it to, launch.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Learn it. Get better with it, and you'll figure out by gaining that knowledge how you can best use it for your particular discipline.
Exactly.
No, definitely. And this, among many other topics that we've also touched upon today, is something that you actively discuss in your podcast. Tell me a bit about the show, given that I see the beautiful sign in the background.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, like, I did it because I knew that I had to put myself out there. I see all these other podcasters that have a fraction of the experience that I do. And I said, God, there's so many stories. And I just remember, as I'm having meetings with my team, I'm like, man, we should just record this as a podcast. I mean, some people can learn, like, we complain about how a client's approaching things. I'm like, oh my God, they could save so much time and money if they just did this way. I'm like, oh, I need to do a podcast on this. I should just hit record. And
to share the learnings with the world.
Yeah. And so, I decided to put it together. I actually painted and cutted these slices of wood I mean, oh God, I did hours of research on just lighting alone.
Yeah, you mentioned that at the start of the show.
Yeah, and microphones, cameras, things like that, and recordings, everything. And so last July is when I started the podcast, and just number one thing I read was you have to be consistent. And you have to constantly do it. If you do that, you're going to outperform 90% of podcasts, because most people quit. And it's true. I was getting to this July and I was like, oh, I've got like maybe 100, subscribers, 10 or 20 views on videos. I'm just like, it's not really doing it. And then we had one episode that pretty much went viral. We had like 30,000 views on it.
Oh, wow.
And it was the AI job market, because this is exactly like what careers do you pick? Because I was having this conversation with my son and I was like, I'm sure people want to hear about this. And, we were doing a lot more technical kind of podcasts. And when you kind of broaden the net to get to the niche, that's kind of the key. If you're so niche, and you're trying to go just after that niche, it's harder to get to that. And you're just going to have lower numbers. And if you're fine with that, that's cool. And maybe that's the way to go. It's just slower growth.
Yeah.
And so when we did that episode, all of a sudden, I think from that July till now, we're at 60 something thousand subscribers.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, so the growth has been insane. And so, once they start to see one video, then they see another, then the funny thing is, the more troll comments that you have, that means the better the outcome. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You hear people commenting, you don't know what you're talking about. What is this crap and stuff like that. So I respond. I'm like, hey, check out our next episode. It's going to be just as crappy as this one. Just smart ass answers like that. It's just fun to engage. That's just my attitude about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been interesting because now I could look at sponsors. I could look at things like that. Actually, maybe I make money from it. But to get back to the original thing of why I did it was to really get what we've done out there, the stories out there. Obviously, it's just a lead gen type of thing to let other people know, like, hey, this is who we are. I don't want to just cold call you and just sell our services. Hey, we're good at what we do. And, that's everybody else says that. But actually talk with podcasting, there's that warm connection that people will see who you are and say, hey, this is somebody I think I can trust.
Yeah.
And let them see if they can help our company. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But I think it's such an important medium. And it's also helped me just, again, talk about what we do and just meet new people and make connections that I normally would never have done. That's why you and I are talking.
Yeah, I can certainly feel the same. I mean, podcasting has been a very exciting experience for me, taught me a lot as well, just from the variety of guests I've had. And now meeting new people like yourself who reached out. Yep. So it's lots of positives there. And you just have to, I guess, remind yourself of the mission that you're going on. And for me, it's really trying to share people's inspiring stories with the world and how they're tackling the grand challenges. And I think every now and then a new topic pops up, and that's what really excites me.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll definitely put a link to the show in the show notes so that listeners can go and head over and hear some of the exciting topics. And you go very deep on some of these aspects. And there's a few really good AI episodes, not just the one on the job market, the education one, for example, as well. So do check it out, listeners, and we'll link it. So it's called Make an Impact.
Yep. You could check it out, subscribe, leave me a troll comment if you want. I'll make sure I respond. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're on social media, LinkedIn, X, all those as well. And I try to engage with people on different topics. So it's a fun thing to do. And I think everybody just remember your first episode is going to be your worst episode. From then on, it just gets better.
And then you watch it grow and you watch yourself change as well. Makoto, it's been fascinating hearing this journey and really going deep on some topics that I haven't had the chance to go deep on. So thank you for entertaining me and also amusing me with the AI talk as well, because I've been wanting to get rid of a lot of these thoughts in my head.
It's a therapy session. Like I said, that's what we do.
And like I do with every guest, I'd love to ask you some key questions so listeners can get to know even more about you. And one word, and UX is really embodying this, that everyone can see in all of this discussion, is the word innovation. So in your view, what does the word innovation truly mean, and how has it shaped the way you approach challenges and opportunities in your work?
I think innovation is not necessarily about creating something completely new. It's about making the complex simple and the impossible more accessible. In UX design, innovations, it means taking something that's powerful, technology like AI, and making it so intuitive that users forget that they're interacting with something so sophisticated. I think true innovation bridges the gap between what technology can do and what humans actually need.
That's well said.
I think, the future of work isn't really about humans versus machines. I think it's about humans with machines.
Yeah.
So I think, again, a takeaway with AI, don't fear kind of the AI revolution. I would position yourself at more of the center of it and, develop kind of your human, unique human superpowers, I guess. It's the creativity, the empathy, and the complex reasoning, but you pair that with the AI literacy. And I think that's what can make you successful in this new day and age.
Incredible. Was there a key moment, a book or person that completely changed the course of your career or mindset? I mean, you talked about the moment you managed to crack, I guess, the SEO for your wife's real estate website. But are there any moments?
I think it's when I start to grasp new things that I was uncomfortable with. Yeah, I was uncomfortable with SEO. And it's something where I knew that was important. It's marketing. And before I moved to Austin, the first thing I did was a year before I moved there, and I knew I was going to move there, I started to optimize the hell out of my website for Austin. And so people got to know who I was. And it was right before it got really crazy. And so I was getting projects because of that. I just thought ahead. And I think, now with podcasting, I didn't really think ahead. I didn't get ahead of Joe Rogan on this one, but I think the fact that I see so many people, especially the older generation, they're more reluctant to do that. And I was too. And so getting ahead of it and grasping it and really leveraging it. I mean, I'm posting, I think I was reluctant to post on LinkedIn, but I see that so many of the executive clients that I know, they're on LinkedIn. It's like a Facebook for them. And I said, oh my God, okay, let me just get into this. So since my podcast started hitting, once we hit 10,000 subscribers, I was like, okay, I can actually be proud of what I've done in my head. I mean, if you got 10 or 20, who cares? Be proud of whatever you do. But for me, that was a confidence kind of booster for me. So then over the past month or two, I've just been posting all the content like crazy because we create great content. And so, yeah, I think last week my impressions were in the plus 40,000 on LinkedIn.
Oh, wow.
And so, I just embrace it now. I'm like, I don't give a F attitude, because I just want people to know, like, hey, I have an idea. I think I'm good at what we do. We have experience in this, and disagree or agree with me, whatever. I just want you to know, like, hey, when I talk to you and I want to help out your company, I know I can change it if there's value there that we can add. And so I'm confident in that. And so now I'm just embracing that, just like I did with SEO, just like I did with UX. And so I think that's what people should be doing as well with whatever they get into.
Many moments that really then, gave you that click as soon as you figured it out. And then I guess a whole wave of excitement then just came immediately after.
100%.
Yeah. And I guess related to that, because, it's always more things coming onto your plate, time management becomes a very tricky task. So what tips and strategies can you offer in terms of time management, and how do you maintain a balance between your professional and personal time?
So I think, definitely leverage kind of that call like AI augmented planning. I let the tools handle like routine stuff and tracking. And that way it kind of frees me up to focus more on the creative problem solving and the client strategy. It's just the key to know which tasks that you can automate and ones that require human judgment. Yeah, you have AI create your editing or your copywriting, you're going to get this AI slop. But if you actually, it can start off and then you can add your stuff to it. So there's that your human touch to it and your uniqueness. I think that's where you've got to separate those things, but then, use AI as augmentation.
Yeah. I guess that saves time in many places, and then just automatically frees up time for your day to day as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. What's your favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory. Oh my goodness. There's different ones, I think. And some of them are, I think it's always, whether it's from reading like astronomy books from my dad's, his high school when he was taught, just like, I always love going to book fairs and just I always immediately get all the astronomy ones. To like, I would go to Japan. Japan was so far ahead in the early or late 80s, I would say, where, robotic toys. I used to take my toys apart. Just see how, and my parents would get a little upset, but I would always just see, oh my God, what is this? What all is that? And no idea how anything worked, but I just wanted to take things apart. And I had so many different robotic toys that I broke, but I think that was a lot of it. And also, this gets into a little bit more personal. I did a lot of martial arts when I was a kid. I was bullied a lot. I was in the Midwest, probably the only half Asian kid in a 100-mile radius. So I was bullied quite a bit, but my mom has always been a tough mother. And I remember one of the stories I had, she took me after I got beat up in kindergarten. She drove around south side of Chicago and she's like, I found the toughest school right next to almost pretty much one of the toughest and roughest neighborhoods in the south side of Chicago. She's like, here's your karate school. All my instructors were African-American. I think I was only half white kid. And they taught me how to fight. And I was there for training for 8-9 years, grew up with these instructors and it really taught me, to be tough and to stand up for yourself. So I think, these are different aspects of growing up that really stood with me from my childhood.
Highly contrasted, but incredible just to listen to. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mention at the start when you mentioned Japan, but I do love Japan. Also just, the futuristic nature of it, and also just the culture. I got to finally go to Japan in 2009 for the first time, and then went back in 2015 for a 3-week trip, and it was just amazing. So planning my next one. Definitely overdue for it.
Oh, for sure. I know. My mom is retired there, so we've got to go visit her. And the culture is so unique there.
And the food.
The food's amazing.
Yeah,
of course.
Definitely the food. So what was one of the most challenging situations that you've ever faced in your career to date, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think, again, it kind of goes back to the team. And if you make a wrong hire, and one of our projects, we hired somebody who it was where I started getting into more development. So I kind of put my trust in the person to really, lead the project and to run it, and come to find out the person wasn't doing any of that. And so I think, I basically went to the client and said, look, I'm going to pay you all the money back that you gave us and then some. And so I took ownership of that situation. And so I think that's kind of where you get in these situations where it's like, if you made a mistake, own up to it. And then go above and beyond to try to fix it. And so that's where, again, you learn from those mistakes and you move forward with that. And so, yeah, that's one of, I think, the most challenging kind of situations that would happen.
But a real lesson in integrity as well, and how, I guess, it paid dividends in the end, looking at where you are now as well.
For sure.
The company. But it takes a lot of guts and a lot of, I guess, grit to do that. And of course, It means, it comes back to you, all the workload and the responsibility. But I guess that's part of leadership as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, very, very insightful to hear coming from you. And so thanks for that. And so we talked a bit about advice, especially in starting a company. But let's say someone is getting into UX for the first time, or I guess into this era. We've already talked a bit about the AI advice, but what other advice can you offer to the young professionals starting out?
I think stop thinking about competing against AI. I think obviously start thinking about collaborating with it. Just be that AI human integration specialist, maybe, if you're interested in that. But really, you still want to master the human skills, the empathy, the contextual judgment, the creative problem solving. Mm-hmm. But while you're becoming AI literate, I think those people, the future basically belongs to people who can seamlessly blend between human insight and AI capabilities.
No, definitely. And a brilliant summary as well of how we've discussed it in different parts throughout today's discussion. Mm-hmm. And so as we slowly get to the end of this episode, I guess the existential question that my guests have dreaded in the past as well is, what would you most like to be remembered for?
I think with what we do, it's really helping bridge the gap between that human potential and the technological kind of possibility or capability. I think because AI is everywhere, I think it's something where we want to be remembered as making AI more human and humans more effective with AI, and showing that the future isn't about just like replacement, but it's about amplification
and harmony, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
Just to sound cheesy, But no, incredible. So you're on social media. People can find you there, I guess. Very active. Yep. We've mentioned LinkedIn. What other channels?
LinkedIn, X, Instagram. I mean, I'm on all of them. You can find me on YouTube, Make an Impact. So yeah, reach out if you got questions, or if you got, anything about like you're trying to build new products, let me know, and I'd be happy to talk to you.
And we'll definitely put the link also to Impact's website in the show notes, so listeners can then look it up and see all the portfolio and achievements you've also done with the company, which is incredible. I say definitely check it out, especially if you need UX questions. Makoto's here to answer them for you and to assist you in building a system that is more human-centric and not too feature-centric. Pretty much reflects the topic of today's discussion. But Makoto, thank you so much for your time and willingness to be on the show, and for reaching out in the first place. I think it's made a very cool addition to the catalog of episodes and topics that we've covered on this podcast. And I think it's a very essential bit going into the future, especially in an AI-powered world.
Definitely. I appreciate you having me. It's been awesome. And
like I do with every guest, I always give my guests the final words. So one final message of your choosing for the listeners to take away from today?
So I think, I guess the question isn't really if AI is going to change your industry. I think it's whether you'll help shape how that change will happen. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that wraps up our enlightening, reassuring, and fascinating episode with Makoto Kern. For more information on UX UI differences, a guide to living and working with AI, or details on how you can connect your microphone to your microwave, check out the show notes for more information over at peterambach.com/podcast. And as always, thank you listeners for tuning into this episode and for your feedback and support. If you are enjoying this show, I would be incredibly grateful if you could share this podcast with your family, friends, colleagues, and even fellow software devs. Subscribe or follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, other podcast channels, or follow the LinkedIn group to stay up to date with the latest releases. If you're curious about me or my work in general, you can also check out my website or social media. Head to peterambach.com, my YouTube channel, Peter Marcus Bach, that's Marcus with a C, or follow me on X at Peter and Bach or Instagram at peterandbach87. Feel free to reach out to me with any feedback or guest suggestions so that I can keep improving this show. The podcast's intro and outro song is called Starsky by Alex Kern. Stay tuned for our next episode and next guest to hear how they are tackling the grand challenges.